Okay, here we are. This dent right here, bad day. You know how this dent happened? I was using that POS John Deere 240 skid steer and I had a big pile of dirt here. That was before this was here. They just put the steel on and I was making this little patch of grass. I was kind of roughing in the landscape here. And guess what? Right off my big pile of dirt, a big rock rolled off the back. Smoked my new tin. That kind of upset me that day. That was a little rough, but you know, we survived. Welcome. So this office did not exist initially. There was a garage door right here, an 8x8 garage door, which I have now repurposed. You could, well, actually, we used to park snowmobiles in here. So you bring the snowmobiles in through the garage door, and we had either boats or snowmobiles parked in here at the time. And then the front of the building was segmented in like three different little bays. And so then me and Jimmy and Uncle Brian and I think Dad helped a little bit here. We put the furring strips up, we drywalled all this, and then Aunt Lori came and painted. So we didn't have a bathroom for like the longest time when it was just me and Jimmy. That was really great. So having this, I built the 2x4 walls. We drywalled it. You know, neighbor Dan built the cabinets. We made a bathroom out of what was another storage bay at the time. There was another overhead door. So this wall was a big door opening right here. This wall did not exist, and this is blocked behind here, so I had to fur this out so we could run the plumbing through the wall. And then added that wall, closed that door opening in, drywalled it all, and now at that point, like after me and Jimmy were already working out of here for like 8 months or something like that, then we finally had a bathroom once we got the water piped in. That's another great story. So this used to be what we call the Thunderdome. This was the first inspection room that we had, which was L-shaped before this office was added in here. So the inspection room went like this and this. On the back side of that wall is that bathroom that we added. And this was the inspection room until we added on the third addition to the place. I mentioned that there was no water, no sewer, basically no electrical. You could see through the walls. It was starting from zero. Well, under all this stuff here in the corner is where the water comes into this building. And when that had to happen, because I didn't have any money, I wound up doing a lot of this stuff on my own after, you know, kind of normal working hours. So we'd try to work on customer stuff during the day, and then after that I would work on trying to make the building a little bit better. So we cut a hole right to the right of this pit here, and it was about 2x2, and at that point we had the water to the outside of the building as well as the sewer. And so then I cut that hole in the floor and sat inside of that hole and drilled a hole through the wall up to my hips in water with luckily a long enough drill bit that it didn't have the drill in the water, but everything else, including me, was in the water. So, you know, things like that are a literal like start from zero and now we have something story is the stuff you remember, because, you know, compared to what we have now, that makes you appreciate things like air conditioning and just the simple water and plumbing. All right, so at this point, I'm like 22-ish years old. I've spent all the money I have to buy a dilapidated building and took a bunch of loanage from the bank to fix up said building. And at this stage, I now know that the power up in the front of the building there was mislabeled. It said there was 400 amp service when there was like half of that with inadequate transformers and all kinds of other problems. So now I'm spending more than I had anticipated, and I'm looking down the barrel of like a huge embarrassing failure.
I'm gonna go ask directions to our next huge embarrassing failure.
You're a huge embarrassing failure.
What?
Nothing.
So now it gets to be about spring at that time of year. This used to be the end of the building right here. We had the overhead door right where I'm standing, and if you took one step past that, this whole foundation of, well, let's see, the entire driveway was falling out basically. So we had that old junk John Deere skid steer that I referenced earlier on, and if you drove out here, you got to about here where you're off the concrete and you would get stuck. So that means that we can't get products in, we can't ship products out, and now we have a gigantic problem. So at that point, I had to dig up some more money, which came from selling my beloved truck that I had custom built from scratch when I was a teenager. And so that was kind of like the last thing that I had left to sell of really a whole lot of value that I didn't need for work purposes at that time. So I sold my truck, and that really sucked, but now I had the money to fix this. So what happened then was we took that skid steer and got my uncle out, who has a excavating and septic system business. So he dug out basically where this entire building is here. He dug all that out like 2 feet down to where we could fill it back up with stone and build it proper so that semis could continue to come around and drop off and pick up the stuff that we were making in the original shop there. If the semis can't get in and out, basically we don't have a business. So that's a gigantic problem when I already didn't have any money and I really needed to make some. So like I said, sold the truck, got that fixed, and then semis could drive back around here. And then at that point, we were back to like square zero, but we were at least able to ship parts again. So that was a step in the right direction. But one of those things that at the time seemed, if the end of the world is this line, I would have been just shy of it. That's how it seemed like at that particular moment in time. Okay, so we just got through our spring debacle of having the driveway fall into the great abyss whenever semis drove over it, to the point where I couldn't even drive the skid steer around on the driveway. We dug that out, we got that fixed. All right, life's good. We're, at that point, we're able to make parts, ship parts for a while, and life is good. Well then, a few months later, we then are working on some sheet metal work. That's a new addition to our part families, as we started out just doing piping basically, and then we got into the sheet metal stuff. It was going real good. We were working with a local company that was doing the water jet cutting for us, and then they decided that they were going to get rid of the water jet. So that then put us in a position where they were really the only ones that could get the water jet cutting done in the time that we needed it. So they told us they were going to get rid of the water jet, and then it was, up to us if we either wanted to buy it or, just let them sell it and do whatever they were going to do with it, and we just have to find a source elsewhere. So pretty much the only way that we were going to get this work done in the time that we needed to get it done is if we bought this water jet, because again, the local people that were doing that for us, they were the only ones that could get it done in that lead time. So that was really awesome while we had them there, but then they decided to switch gears, which is, just fine. But I didn't have any money to buy a water jet, so herein lies the problem. Well, I also didn't have any space for a water jet, because as you can see behind me here, this is actually added on to the existing building, which the wall was right about here. So I didn't have space for it, which means that we had to then build an addition off the side of the building to even get it in here. And then I also didn't have the money to buy a water jet. So I took the work that we had committed. I went to the bank and I said, I need to build an addition. I need to get this water jet in here. And I basically worked with the previous owners of the water jet to basically owner finance the purchase of the water jet. And then I went to the bank with, you know, the work commitments that I had, POs in hand, and said, all right, well, I got to get this water jet. To get this done, we're going to buy the water jet, and then I need you to help support me in being able to fund building an addition so I have a spot to put it. So the previous owners of the water jet were gracious enough to let us run it at their place while we got the addition built here. So then once we got the addition built, we then could bring the water jet in here. At the point where it was ready to come down here, I rented a really big 10,000 pound telehandler, and we crab walked the water jet in through the door, which is like the same size as this thing, and worked it into the corner here. We had all the piping laid into the concrete so that once we got it here, it was hooked up really nice, and we added a drain in the floor to catch any water. So, you know, long story short, once we got the water jet in here, we had it set up really well. Everything was in one spot at that point, and we were set up pretty good. But, you know, this is now like 2, 3, 4 times that I get backed into this corner of, all right, I'm already out of money. I got to spend a bunch more. How do we make that happen? We just figure it out. And as long as I had work commitments all the way through, as far as POs in hand from customers that showed the bank that, you know, I had sustainability at least for X amount of time with the work that I already had committed, as long as they gave me the funds that I needed to get the work done, as far as, you know, line of credit needs to buy material, and also financed the build out of the facility, then I was able to keep moving forward. But, you know, looking back at that, there's a lot of different thoughts there, as far as, you know, does a person want to take on debt? How much debt do you want to take on, if any? You know, that's really an individual decision. But I started with no money. I had a long road ahead of me to the point of, you know, getting a building that I could work out of, even to like a minimum standard, just being able to get work shipped out the back door. There was a bunch of machines that had to be purchased, and, you know, here again with the water jet, now you just add more machines on top of that, add more building expenditure. You know, there's people that need to be paid in the meantime. It takes a lot of money to get all this going from zero, and when you don't have any to start out with, well, I guess that leaves the bank. So that's what I did. It's not necessarily the path for everybody, but it's the one that I chose. And, you know, my partnership with the bank helped me get to the point where I could really just, at a minimum, at least get my feet under me and have a building that I could make work out of and then pay off the bank. So what you're looking at here is a bunch of assemblies that were the exact same assemblies that the company started with. So I was working on the road. I got a offer to pick up the contract for building these, and, you know, what the hell, might as well give it a try. So I said yes to taking on the contract, and then, you know, I was working on it in my dad's home garage basically at the time. That kind of ran its course. I needed to find a place to go, and so by the time that I ran out of working space in dad's garage there, I had POs for basically a year's worth of, oh, we should probably talk about this inside order. Perfect, just perfect. The corners are perfectly rounded. Thanks for coming along on a short little tour through the facility as I highlighted some of the earlier ups, downs, left, right, uphill, downhill, blood, sweat, and tears filled journey that is starting a business from something to nothing. And so here we are 6 years down the line in my office, and we've got, at this point, 50 team members. We've got a couple different locations. You know, things are much different than they were at the time where I was referring to in the very beginning here, when I had semis dropping through the parking lot into the Great Abyss, and I was up to my elbows in the water trying to drill holes through the side of the building so that we can have a bathroom. Things have really come a long way. Some things have stayed the same though. The number one thing is, you know, since day one, my wish for this entire expedition that is the business is creating endless opportunities for myself and my team. And we've definitely done that. We continue to do that. And so at this point, it's my goal to give you guys more of a view inside of what that looks like on a more day-to-day basis, and give you some tips to become part of a company that can help you in your life be having the same endless opportunities that we are intending to provide here at JR for our team. So all that being said, thank you again for tagging along today. Please click subscribe, and I appreciate your time and look forward to seeing you in the next video. Have a great day.